A strong community protects its elders. Preventing elder maltreatment takes all of us. We need to stay aware and awake to the signs of older adult abuse and help anyone who could be in trouble. In New Mexico, everyone who is able to report abuse is a mandated reporter. Let's take a look at some of the people who make up our elder community in New Mexico.
Rosalind. Meet Rosalind. She's fiercely independent, intelligent, active, socially engaged, and productive. She has faced life transitions such as raising children, welcoming grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren. She also lived through a 65-year marriage and the loss of her husband. She doesn't fear death, but the dependence on others to meet her basic needs. She's had to stop driving at night due to vision limitations. She's not limited, however, in activities such as water aerobics, going out with friends for movies, shows, and dining, and in playing mahjong and bridge. Recreation and leisure is one of the resiliency factors for communities in protecting elders and families from older adult maltreatment.
Here is Ruth. After turning 97 recently, she still lives independently in her own apartment. Ruth emigrated to marry an American serviceman who happened to be my grandfather in 1953 after World War II. She now has 6 kids, 12 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 3 great-great-grandchildren. She loves the mountains and nature, and family and church are central to her life. When my grandfather found out he had Alzheimer's about a decade ago, some of the factors that helped our family were the fact that he had both county and military retirement income in addition to Social Security, and they could afford paid in-home caregivers when they needed to. They were able to remain in their apartment with both family and professional support. Families who are in a state of poverty may face a very different proposition if they don't have the financial ability to access the support they need for their elder family members. Caregivers need social safety nets and affordable resources in order to provide for the needs of older adults. A situation that appears to be neglect may actually be the result of poverty, where a family is doing the best they can with no money, coupled with the community's decision not to allocate resources toward its elderly population. In the United States, more than 23 million Americans serve as informal caregivers. 85% have no outside paid help, 72% are women. The more support caregivers have, the better life they can provide for their elders. Luckily, that's not my grandmother's story. Due to a lifetime's hard work and planning and a loving family, she and my grandfather were able to retire with enough.
Now meet June Rose, age 90. An entrepreneur well into her older adult years, June Rose also led a loving family with her wisdom and loving nature. One of the myths of late adulthood is that people stop learning and mastering new skills. In her book, Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert writes about Winifred, who became the expert in the field of the history of ancient Mesopotamia during her 80s. Gilbert writes on page 145, "I could almost feel my perspective expanding as if my mind were being ratcheted open several notches and was now welcoming in all sorts of new possibilities for what a woman's life could look like."
The generation heading into older adulthood now are the baby boomers. There are 80 million of them in the United States. Every day, approximately 10,000 people turn 65. As more people age, incidents of older adult maltreatment are likely to increase. Even though the prevailing perception of domestic violence is associated with young female victims, it is just as real and just as painful when the abuse occurs for older adults. One national study estimated that only 1 in 5 incidents of elder abuse was reported. This type of abuse goes unrecognized, unreported, and untreated in the current U.S. culture because policy has not changed since the year 2000, and there is a dearth of research on how to handle elder abuse. With so many people entering older adulthood, there's an opportunity to change this situation at this point in history. Older adult maltreatment occurs between adults. Males are equally as likely as other genders to be victims of older adult maltreatment. It can show up when one of two adults is incapacitated, when both adults have no cognitive impairment. It may be intimate partner violence that has continued or worsened after years of partnership or marriage. It can involve substance abuse issues within a family system. It can involve a physically dependent parent or child. There is predation in an institutional setting sometimes.
Ageism is a form of prejudice and discrimination that suggests common stereotypes based upon a person's age. It may explain why so few resources have been allocated and so little attention has been paid to this issue. Researchers and social justice advocates understand that ageism impacts our current understanding of older adult maltreatment. What we know is that few national sources of data exist. The 2004 Survey of Adult Protective Services, Abuse of Adults 60 Years of Age and Older, is still the widest used national resource for information on older adult maltreatment. This survey cited more than 500,000 reports of older adult abuse to Adult Protective Services in 2003. Of those, approximately 42% of the investigated cases were substantiated. The people who reported the abuse were family members, social service workers, friends and neighbors, elders themselves, long-term care facility workers, law enforcement, nurses, home health staff, physicians, and others. Older adults are those who are 60 years and older, according to the Older American Act. Elder abuse has been described as the intentional act of causing harm or creating serious risk of harm, despite intention, to an older adult by a caregiver or other person who is responsible for the elder, or failing to meet the basic needs or to protect an elder from harm. Self-neglect is also defined as elder abuse. No one official definition exists. Elder abuse can occur in any setting, in a person's own home, in an institutional setting, and in public.
There are 7 types of older adult maltreatment. Neglect is the refusal or failure to fulfill any part of a person's obligations or duties to an elder, including fiduciary responsibilities. This typically involves life necessities such as food, water, clothing, shelter, personal hygiene, medicine, comfort, personal safety, and in-home service provider care responsibilities. Signs of neglect are poor hygiene, movement problems, bed sores, dehydration, bowel and bladder problems, depression, malnutrition, under or over medication, ignoring warnings of obvious disease, repetitive hospital admissions due to probable inattention to health care needs, and a statement by an older person. Self-neglect is an elder person behaving in a way that threatens their own health or safety. Physical abuse is the use of physical force that may result in bodily injury, physical pain, or impairment. Signs include bruising, lacerations, and fractures, and/or a statement by an older person. Sexual abuse is non-consensual sexual contact of any kind with an older adult. Signs include medical and legal evidence and a statement by an older person. Financial or material exploitation is the illegal or improper use of an elder's funds, property, or assets. Signs include misuse of money, legal evidence, reports of demands for goods in exchange for services, inability to account for money or property, and a statement by an older person. Emotional or psychological abuse is the infliction of anguish, pain, or distress through verbal or nonverbal acts. This can include verbal assaults, insults, threats, intimidation, humiliation, and harassment. Abandonment is the desertion of an elderly person by an individual who has assumed responsibility for providing care for an elder. Signs include evidence a caretaker has withdrawn care without alternative arrangements, evidence that an older person was left alone in an unsafe environment for extended periods without adequate support, and a statement by an older person.